Welcome back, you gorgeous humans, to the Canadian podcast portal to DJs, producers, electronic music, the dance floor, and everything that goes bump in the night. I am Jello, the host and Digi Sherpa for our audio and video storied adventure. When we think about Toronto and its electronic music scene, we definitely think about house music. The genre has sustained love, turned heads, and moved feet for decades in the evolving metropolis. Planet Earth knows this because of the city's heroes that champion the infectious 4/4 beats with dope bass and jazzy rhythms. Our guest tonight is one of those heroes. Funky, sexy, and soulful are just some of the tags that bring forth the idea of what he sounds like, with releases upon Hawk Creations, Raw Authentic, Desolat, Moxie, and his own Purveyor Underground imprint, which has seen releases from Phil Weeks, Mark Farina, Carlo Leo, and Kenny Dope. The DJ sets are bursting with energy. I've seen and heard the audio bumping bass bins and have been smiling from ear to ear when it's happening. He has moved people across Toronto and so much more across the border with a mighty tour schedule. So it's dynamite that we get to capture his magic with us tonight as we dive into season 3 of our show that is nearly 14 feet underground. Let's do this together as we welcome Demuir to the utility room.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That was quite the intro, man. I'm like embarrassed there, but thank you so much.
Why?
I'm a little bit. Well, it's you get to you just do what you do, and you don't really, at least for me, I don't really think about how it's impacting. I just put it out there. So when you hear it come back to you, it's like, holy crap! Oh yeah, that happened. Yeah.
Do you feel? Are you like does the awareness of what your efforts are they always with you, like, or is it
at a very cursory level? Like I'm not thinking, because I'm just more about thinking about, I'm so future focused, and I like to be in the present, but I'm just thinking, okay, what do I need to do in terms of what's inspiring me right now, and get it out there and execute it and done, So
these lights are like I'm still
killing
trying.
you?
Yeah, I'm constantly trying to adjust to it. So sometimes I feel like I'm making faces while we're doing the show.
No,
and it's
you're
like,
good, man.
Yeah,
You're
okay,
good.
great.
You're good.
Let's get into it.
Yes, sir.
What do you love about house music?
Great question. I love, a lot of people say that to you, don't they? Great question. Like right out the bat, I love the feeling. It's all about the feeling, and the great thing about house music, it takes me back to that time. It wasn't house music that I heard, but it was techno that I heard on Ryerson Radio, 98.1, I want to say, at the time. And some Derek May tune was playing, Mayday stuff, crazy. It Is What It Is, I think, was the track. And then you just go down the abyss. So house music, for me, it's a feeling, and it's so universal. You can put it on, and people who get it just get it. People who don't. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you've had a similar feeling as an artist yourself, right? But it's a feeling for me, yeah.
Do you think that house music is easier now to digest from the average person that's out there than maybe what it was then?
I think so. I think,
Is it because of the awareness of the genre? Is it the accessibility?
I think it's both, because we now have a degree of, a fairly robust amount of history attached to it. Like, when it first started, some people say it started 79, others say 87, right? Regardless, at that time, there wasn't as much history. Your reference points were what people were experimenting with in, say, Detroit or Chicago, and Kraftwerk records or abstract electronica, and mixing it all together, right? Whereas now, it's like, it's been developed and nurtured with Madonna's Vogue. That was the album that sort of, house music has arrived, it's commercial, right?
I feel that way as well.
Yeah, before the whole cheesy commercial EDM,
It's Madonna
cake
that
smashing,
did it.
Madonna had first dibs on, packaging it up.
That the world would hear it, right?
Absolutely.
Instead of just a warehouse or a nightclub, and
Yes.
that in that environment, that scene.
Yes, Frankie
Right.
Knuckles was a part of that
As
journey
well
too.
as
Morales too?
With a J, Julian, Jonah, Jelly Bean,
Joe,
Jelly Bean
yeah,
Benitez.
Jelly, yeah, that's right.
Cheers. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It
I
helped.
think they even dated at some point too.
I did they?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's documented. You can check it
It's
out.
somewhere out there.
What stupid random things I
No,
know,
no,
right?
I was
But-
just talking about. She had a book that was like the most controversial
Yeah,
book
sex.
ever. And then she came and she
Yeah.
performed in Toronto, and she had the missile bra, and the missile.
They arrested her. Right?
That's
I remember
right.
That
They
at
did.
Skydome.
Yeah,
right?
that's in the documentary. The cop like in her face, if you go out on, and she's like, yeah, sure. And she's like, fuck that. And she comes out on stage.
Yeah.
Madonna was like the original badass as far as pop stars go.
But she was wearing like the house pants, the bells, the
Right.
happy face,
Right.
all of the things that embodied the culture attached to house music. That was the first reference point of it being commercialized. So that's why I say, she's iconic. We have a history, plus it's gone through that commercialization. So it's accessible even more now with technology. So that's why I say both.
We were talking before the show recorded. Is Demuir? I feel like I feel like I fucked it up in the intro. Even I was about to
I don't
I was
really.
like,
You can say Demure or whatever. Demure, just like the English word Demure.
So is this true? Is this a true name or is this an alias?
No, it's an alias. My real name is Kevin. How boring is that, right? Right? It's boring, right?
It's not.
It's Kevin. It's Gaelic. And the only thing, the only thing exciting about it being a Gaelic reference is that it means handsome, and I'll hang my hat on that for now.
So if you could choose a different alias to describe yourself and your brand, what would you select?
Oh my God, alias, irreverence. Yeah, that's what I describe. I think everything I've been doing in the last, especially during the start of just before the start of the pandemic, has been against the grain. I like to say this to people, I didn't really start living until I stopped giving a shit about other people's opinions and how it would make them feel. All of that shit's out the door, especially in this industry. I really don't care. You get into this industry. I've been doing this now professionally, full time, because I was working before for the last 6-7-ish years. And you go through that, should I be politically correct around certain things? How do I get that gig? Creating relationships. Whereas now, I am so affirmed and confident and sure of my own identity, not only for myself as an artist, but for my brand and my label. And I'm okay with it going against the grain. Some of the things I do and say are not popular thinking within the industry, but I'm okay with that because it's part of who I am.
Do you think that it's accessibility that helps fuel that type of idea? Because now, for
Absolutely.
example, we think about, and I want to get into it because I had
Yeah.
no idea that you were recording from long ago with labels like Stickman or Aquarius.
Yes.
And if I think about that path, let's talk about that path real
Yeah.
quick. What was that path back in 1999? What was the path in 99 if you were a producer, DJ person, or even just a producer? You want to make house music. You had no care about actually playing records, which used to be a thing. For example, citing an Aquarius and Stickman recording artist, PJ.
Yes.
Did PJ ever do a DJ set? Did that even happen?
I don't think so. And it's funny. I spoke to him last year. He's a lawyer now.
I keep hearing this.
Yeah, he's a lawyer. He is. I had to do some digging because I wanted to. I was thinking about doing a podcast at the time, and he was one of the people I wanted to interview because that was such a huge hit. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Back in the day, for me, I was 16, 17, chilling, and my parents were super strict. They wouldn't allow me to go to clubs or anything like industry. You don't know how much it hurts to know that guys like you we're in it, and I had to be on the sidelines waiting for the CD, like an MP3, to come burn to a CD and catch it. But my parents were super strict. But my records, I was doing vinyl, and it was easy back in the day. You know, you make the record, throw it on that. Stickman also owned a vinyl plant called Acme at the time in Markham. So and say, here you go. If they like the record, they throw it in a record pool, and you can do well just producing the music, right? So all you have to do was sell about 2,000 copies at $5 per, USD per unit. So that was a good living, right? And it wasn't like it is today where it was super saturated. You had like a handful of distributors, from Watts in New York to a couple folks on the West Coast. And then, like it was more, I don't want to say controlled or gatekept, but yeah, there were some controls in place that will filter the quality of music. And that's why you could do well just doing the production. And remixes were going for 30,000 back then. Life was good. So I was cool just doing that, making the music. And I didn't have to DJ. I did DJ, but for pleasure, just on my own. And I didn't have to worry about social media or anything like it is today. So that's what it was like in the 90s, right? Like, put the records out, and if you wanted to just DJ, that's all you had to do.
The path, though, was not entirely accessible, not just because of the idea of gatekeeping or somebody that would be in charge and that would be vetted.
Yes.
A&R, a form of control over what was happening and not what was happening, and that there were people in charge, that perhaps there would be a round table that would sit down with a group of submissions, and everyone would sit down with some beer and some spliff, coffee, whatever it was, and be like, let's put these tracks on. That's a yes, that's a no, no, yes, giant yes. Okay, this goes into the holy fuck pile. This actually happened, and so the accessibility had to go through all these steps. Now, for example, the big difference is that you could make a track, go to DistroKid, upload it, and then it's there.
Yeah, I like to tell people all you have to do is walk into a Best Buy, grab a laptop, and a few plugins, make a track, drag and drop samples, and put it out, and you're good to go.
Well, I mean, you're good to release. I don't know if you're good.
Not the good, but you know what I mean, right? Like, it's this thing where in terms of your point, accessibility,
right,
is just like loose today. Like, it's just.
I feel like it's going to be a big theme for us here over the course of our get together tonight in our session is and it has been throughout. I feel Utility Room is accessibility has changed how people see, hear, feel, and use music.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the adoration that happened when we first got a hold of music was different because of the hurdles and the hoops of fire sometimes that we'd have to go through to get this music into our hands.
Yeah.
And then what would happen when the tangibility effect of actually physically holding this very precious moment that was part of us, and how we would want to share that, as opposed to just being like, here's a link.
Yeah.
That's today. Here's a link.
Yeah. Go for it.
Here's a link.
Enjoy it. And then when you get the link, because it's happened 1,000 amount of times, you're skipping through. Like, it's not even like a needle, right? Where you're looking for the break, or the grooves of the record, and it's a little lighter there. Let me listen to that spot. Or you're excited to flip it to the logo or B side of the record because that's where the serious heat is, right? It's different now. It's just complete. It's completely binary, and a lot of the music lacks quality control for sure.
What were some of
accessibility? Sorry.
No, it's cool. I want to cut you off. You got a thought to share?
No, go for it.
No. If you got some.
No. I'm done.
What were some of your earliest struggles with branding your name and vibe, and how did you get past that?
I think the thing that every artist goes through is finding their sound. So in the 90s, it was easy. I don't want to use the word easy, but I was so entrenched in the creation of music and how to do things properly. it consumed all of my time as a teenager, right? So I found a sound at that time that worked for me, and labels like Stickman put it through the quality test and signed them and put it out. So I was very comfortable then. And then I took a 10-year break, and I came back to music around 2010, 2011, and electro was hitting off. And wow, it's like a complete culture shock. I had to relearn or rediscover what my sound is now based on all of my experiences. So I'd say that is the biggest hurdle to get over is what is your sound? Like I tell people all the time, I can hear two notes of a Robert Glasper record and know it's him. Like I know it's him. I know because of how he hits the key or however the way the record is mixed. I just know it's him, right? And that's what I mean by finding your sound. Is wanted to have something where someone would just press play and like, ooh, that's a Demuir track coming in, or oh, this is Demuir, that uniqueness. And it took me a substantial amount of time and effort to develop that. So it's a huge hurdle, but once you get it, you're good.
And you're feeling comfortable with it right now, right?
Oh, completely, completely. So comfortable that when I was very comfortable in saying, yeah, this is my sound, I went from jackin house from house to jackin house to tech house to techno, soulful house releasing on Yoruba, and back, a deep house too. Because I realize it's all about my interpretation of the music, not about what fucking PR. And that's one of the biggest things I fucking hate about music today. Not that PR was never around, it's always been around, but today, you can be completely talentless, but because you got a PR firm on retainer and a couple of, good connects, you can be this a star.
I feel like that story is like a bit of the more things change, the more they stay the same.
The same, yeah.
Yeah, it's great that you said that because I've admired the genre of rock music's branding. For example, the umbrellas of titles used for describing, have they've covered a lot of scope. Like there's hard rock, soft rock, ballad rock, rock and roll.
Progressive.
I thought that the limited amount of genre types brings the whole umbrella and its scope together. And this feels like the opposite to house music. Do you feel that it's important that house music continue the path of hundreds of descriptions for genres, or does this action dilute the audience?
Well, I do. I think it's very important that house holds some roots, like a DNA, right? Just like, we can walk away and say blues influence rock influence, whatever, metal and so forth, and branch. Like, you need those roots there because as an artist, you going through those experiences to master them are extremely valuable, in terms of what you bring to the craft and ultimately the culture. So I think those roots are very, I'm not saying maintain it, keep it the same. I'm just saying have an awareness, have an understanding, and then interpret it in your own way.
It's lovely that you're saying it because I want to ask you, how relevant is the history of house music? And if you feel it's important, apparently you do.
Yeah.
How would you suggest that new people who have fallen in love with it become knowledgeable about it?
This is the funniest thing, right? We are in the most information-rich, technology abundant time of our lives, where you can literally say, I do not know how to change an oil on my particular vehicle, and go on YouTube and figure out how to do it within minutes, right? So it blows my mind we have these conversations sometimes, especially with the generations, that, not to alienate or isolate, but I'm just speaking from experience in the conversations I've had. If you're a millennial or Gen Z, and you're like, hey, who started house music, or what are the roots of house music? All you got to do is Google, and you'll get some varying opinions. But go down the rabbit hole, man. Figure it out. Like the information is there. So I think it's extremely important to just have a willingness to learn. Like that's I listen to my dad's records to learn jazz music and scales and improvisation and what all those things mean, and then I brought it into the music that I was interested in, which is house music. Anybody like we can do this today.
Does jazz get enough credit for the influence it's had upon house music? Not even just house music, perhaps all of electronic music, because a lot of the drum samples that originated or came like for drum and bass and jungle, the aim and break. Where did the aim and break come from?
That's like gospel, but I see where you're going with this.
So, okay,
Yeah.
so and I feel that when there's a default to the influence, the default like, as you mentioned, Kraftwerk, or a band like, for example, like Telex, and then of course the roots from Detroit and Chicago. This seems to be the prominent conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say that you're our first guest who's brought up jazz, and I feel you when you say it, because this was perhaps it's definitely free form music. It's non-linear. It's about feeling.
Yeah.
This is electronic music.
Yeah.
If I was describing it, there's a match.
Yeah, I think like I kind of I just look at lineage, so to speak. So from the blues to jazz to rock and so forth, and then you just go deep into other things, right? But I mean, that jazz is influential to me because of what was in my dad's record collection in particular. But I was able to piece together certain things I would hear rhythmically in jazz appearing in popular music. Like if you look at jazz artists like Herbie Hancock, who Rocket, the huge hit, right, back in the day, breakdancing. But he's like one of my favorite artists.
He was a
ever.
one and done thing. We talked about this last season because as a kid I put the record on. I was like, all the vibes, and be like, I gotta go and get the new Herbie Hancock record, and I did, and I grabbed it. I came home and I pressed play, and I'm staring at my speakers, going, all right, it'll be the next track. Okay, it's gonna be the next track, and then the album's finished. I was like, what happened?
Future Shock, right? That's the album. No, Herbie Hancock is like he one of his songs is like a jazz standard. It's called "Tell Me a Bedtime Story," and it's been covered many times. He is just fully entrenched, primarily a jazz artist. But my whole point of bringing him up is that the things he does and his ability to sort of work it into popular culture as a jazz musician, you're able to see those signatures stamped on multiple genres as a result. So for me, I only get that because my dad listened to it a lot, but I appreciate it to that extent where I can say, yeah, it has some workings in electronic music for sure.
Social media algorithms and constructs propel the idea that perpetual posting and content creation, be it through new music or photos and videos, have to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Does this limit the digestion of the consumer with music, or build up the desire to know more?
I'm going to say the latter. Yeah, the desire to know more. It actually becomes insatious to a degree, right? Because once the person latches on and says, I'm interested in that individual and what they're doing, you can now follow that artist and you can get notified whenever that artist posts something. You have the ability now to like reach out directly and say, hey, what were you thinking when you created this, right? That's a question I get asked often too. So that is the advantage of accessibility in social media. So I do think that's a good thing about it, right? Like it helps propel the idea of a loyal fan base.
Could it also promote a form of burnout on the fan base, on the brands or the artist or the performer?
It can. I've had this discussion with many of our peers, right? And I think some people adapt to the skill set, the skill set being social media management. That's what I call it. Whereas others struggle with it. They feel like, oh, I need to post something, and I'm compelled to it. And like for me, I just figured it out. Like, if I don't feel like posting anything, I don't post anything, man. Like I used to post a lot of like snippets of when I'm working in the studio, but now my Instagram story is all jokes and things that make me laugh or things that inspire me. Like because that's an extension of me and my artistry. So you could get comfortable with it. I think you just got to find a spot. But burnout is real for sure. There's some people that just get completely overwhelmed with it.
Right, because if you see it and it's nonstop and you can't turn the channel off and it's always in your face letting you know, here's a new notification, again,
Yeah, yeah.
again. And I think to myself after like a few weeks, I'm like, what could you possibly say to me right now? So sometimes I feel like I need to, for me personally, I need to just walk away from it for a sec so that I can appreciate when I go back to it again.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I neglected to mention a part of what has allowed me to manage it so much more effectively. We're having the conversation about the currency of time, and that's one of the things. Like I know, hey, my time is important for certain things, so I'm very conscious. Like I do an audit of how I spend my time each day. Like so,
You
what did
following a calendar or a schedule?
yeah, I have a routine every day, and I have certain things I need to get done, and 20% of those things are 80% of the results and or the value add. So I need to make sure I did that 20%, and I didn't pay attention to the noise. So that's again, it anchors me back to the currency of time, and and it enables me to just balance these things out. But I totally get the burnout thing. Like it's all happened to us. Like you're scrolling and like, oh, 40 minutes later, right? So I'm very conscious to not lose that 40 minutes to social media or the thought that I have to do something for social media. Rather, it's me leveraging social media to help me execute what I'm expecting of myself.
Are you on your phone managing that time with social media when you're not doing your own posting? If you're not doing your own content creation for your own socials,
Yeah.
if you're just doing the what's happening in the world type thing,
Mm-hmm.
do you have like it be like, okay, after 5 thumb scrolls I'm out, or do you have
Yeah,
a
I'm very much get in, get out.
right?
Like today is a perfect example. I posted something about a remix contest for my community. If they want to get involved, here's how. Here it's coming. Tomorrow I'm following up with a video. So my whole thing tomorrow is going to be record the damn video, get it encoded, throw it up, and once it's up, I'm out. Like I'm not trying to wait. Like I've seen people do this, like literally wait for comments and reactions. Like why are you doing that? That's such a waste of time and effort. So that's me. I'm more of a get in, get out sort of thing. I've done my job.
What's happening when that happens? What happens if somebody's doing a post and then they're just hanging out to see the reaction of the post?
I think they're allowing the not only the post but the system that is behind social media to drive some sort of value in their lives. Like I just think, like think about this, right? Even for yourself in your personal life, the people you choose to spend time with, right? You're consciously choosing to do that and spend time with individuals because they're fulfilling something in your life that makes sense to you for a varying degree of reasons, right? Um, I think that's what happens to people who are just like stuck on this social media shit. You know, they're waiting. Oh, look, I got so many views. I've seen people, like, I couldn't tell you how many views I got on a on a post because I don't care. Like the post is there to achieve something that is part of something else, and when I execute it, it's done, and I keep it moving.
Do you do you follow what's happening? I call it go fish. I find that there's a lot of social media fishing. So I'll see something, and this is definitely current gen. This is, I made a new mix. Should I release it? or my favorite is new tracks out. Who's got it? And it's like, and I could only like, I feel like originally when the Go Fish happened, there was obviously a lot of traction with it, because at that point, which I was going to say, I feel like the Go Fish started like about a half decade ago, and when it happened, you know, social media isn't where it is right now today. I feel like as soon as you talk about something that is an extension of your brand, that involves any form of remuneration, a sale, a stream, you name it, a party I'm doing, better boost that post or no one's going to fucking see it. Right, and that's where it's landing. Unless you put a Go Fish thing associated with a boost, then I feel like both things happening at the same time could probably elevate
like
that post.
Follow the crumbs.
Right, it's just so.
But it's kind of like those posts. I got a new mix. Should I post it? It's kind of cringy to me.
So
man.
when I see it, I think to myself, I mean, I've got to, I would say bite my tongue, but at this point, stick my fingers in my mouth. I feel like you want to write back and be like, what are you going to do if this post is crickets? Are you going to hold on to this track? Are you going to hold on to the mix?
Delete the post.
What the fuck is where's the artistry when that happens? This is not about artistry at all. It's about creating interaction. And when you're creating interaction, then what are you really interacting for? So, I mean, like, I you know, like, if, for example, I couldn't imagine, you know, Monet out there today and getting up on Twitter and being like, did a new painting. Should I let you see it? I don't know. If, you know, 50 likes and I'll show you the new painting. You know, like
or Jackson Pollock. You know, like you know, yeah. But that's part of why I say you have to look at social media as the tool for you. Like it's like what it would be. It's the equivalent to going back in the day and creating a flyer and taking the flyers and posting it in the Eaton Center or something. That's what it is. But we didn't wait around for, I don't want to sound like old school here. I'm the leader of the old school. No, I'm just speaking from my experience. We weren't necessarily like, yo, those 200 flyers you gave away, how many phone calls did you get against that for the rave, right? We didn't give a shit. It was all about put the energy out there, and whoever it's made for, the audience we intend it to be for, will get it. I don't even do hashtags on posts. That used to be a big thing. You got to hashtag everything. And then I realized, like, gosh, like, the people who are most successful go through that whole life cycle of hashtagging, posting X amount of times, only to end up to a place where they got tons of followers and no longer needing to hashtag. And for me, it's just about, it's not about the number of followers, it's about the quality. If I have the followers that are there because they want to be there, I don't need to do any of that shit. I've proven it time and time again. So
there's something I know on the flip of it, so I don't sound like a massive detractor of social media and what's going on. The flip of it is that there's a beauty to social media as well. The beauty is that you're able to connect with what could potentially be your tribe, you know.
For sure.
And that could be literally a 25-hour flight away from where you are, but someone somewhere over there somehow got a hold of what it was that you were doing, liked it enough to literally take their fingers and let themselves do the walking to what your project is, your brand is, the idea, and engage.
Yeah.
And it's incredible when that happens, because especially if they're going to go forward and take that extra step and do the DM. Hey, I'm from this place and this area code. I'm over here. I'm banging this thing that you've done.
Yes.
Thanks. I really feel it. I'm here. I'm driving fast. I'm in the gym. I'm with my partner. We're smashing in bed. Because of this vibe. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and it'd be like, wow. Yeah. I mean, all of a sudden the world doesn't feel so big anymore.
You can't put a price on that.
And then also we're not alone that much anymore.
Yes. You've captured that quite eloquently. That's why I'm so appreciative of whenever someone tags me and is playing my music or they put it in a mix or whatever, I just repost it. Like because it's a way of me saying thank you for engaging my artistry, engaging my music enough to say it touched you or it meant something to you or it's a significant part of your life. I played Electric Island last year.
And
Um,
rocked it.
yeah, I hope
I thought
so.
you did.
I hope so. But I came off the stage and I had a moment there where this guy called me over and he's like, you know, High Live and Dirty helped me to remind myself about the beauty of life and not to be suicidal anymore. You know, like that's I still get like
That's hardcore.
yeah, it is. You get like the goosebumps like wow, something I did in the four corners of my home in my studio touched a person that way. I've had people from France send. I did the song called "Love Into Nothing," and they're singing. It's like this loop. It's just and they're singing it at the top of their lungs, and it's just really touching. So, you are absolutely correct. You not only find your tribe, but you also see how your music impacts people from a distance, like a really, you know, geographically speaking, like from a far distance, aside from when you're gigging in front of them. So
Many DJ producers wish to land upon giant festival lineups and be featured upon a main stage. What do you feel happens to that artist after that's achieved? Did they make it? Now what?
yeah, well, these damn questions. Everyone is so good. Like, jeez, like, um, no, we've all been through this. I like, well, so I'll just speak for
Well, no,
myself.
no, not everyone's landed on the main stage.
Oh, true. Okay.
You're super fortunate, which is dope.
I am.
Yeah,
I'm super grateful for that.
for sure.
Um, you know what? For me, I'm so goal oriented and focused. I'm just like, okay, what's next? What else can we do? Right? So for me, I'm appreciative of the moment and the exposure, but more, you know, you've heard us say, I'm sure you've heard us, our peers say, like, side stage is not that bad sometimes, because of the more intimate vibe you get and stuff. So for me, it's just more like, hey, I'm grateful for the moment, but let's keep it moving. What's next? I'm excited to see what's next. But I don't. I know of some of our peers who are like, man, like getting on that main stage is everything, and if they don't do it, it's like everything is shit, which is so not true. Because it depends on the aesthetic of the festival. I think a lot of people forget that. It depends on what vibe the promoter wants to put out. So if it's like this big room main stage sound they're going for, but you're making Jack in House like me, well, don't have that expectation. It's like that whole Shakespearean thing. Expectations are the root of all disappointment, you know? So have a different expectation and don't again, I keep coming back to this, don't let it define your value. But it's wonderful when it happens, but for me I'm just thinking let's create some more value.
I think and we're coming we're for us both coming from a perspective of where we've got the privilege to answer the question because you can look at it from both sides. I know
Mm-hmm.
I've played rooms that are 100 people, played places that are 10,000, and and it's weird because there's some times where I'll go into, I'll use footwork as an example because, it was here, it was in Toronto.
Yeah.
It's no longer, to say that the top electronic producer, DJ, performers were under that roof doing their thing in a room that felt squeezed at 275 people.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, maybe sometimes there might have been 300 in there, but um, I don't know if it was because the ceilings were 20 fucking feet high, or if it was just, I feel like there's not enough discussion if I was revisiting the idea of the conversation for footwork. The way the room was shaped, it was a very alternative shape. It felt like it was shaped almost like a lightning bolt. The snake.
Yeah. The bend.
Yeah, it had that bend.
Yeah.
And so it gave different perspectives if you were on the floor where you could see the action in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
But there were times where I was in that room where it felt like I was playing to a whole lot more than 300 people. You know, and being that close to that action and having that connection with the audience, being that close to the music together is a very different thing than being on a massive stage with a massive sound system and then a big drop off space, barrier, audience. And I'm not dismissing it. There's magic in both instances. I've had incredible experiences on both instances. And on the flip, I've also played at a giant thing where I've had to look up and be like, is this thing on? You know, and or been in a small room and been like, is everyone okay? So I couldn't say that there's an equality. I couldn't say that there's a sameness. I mean, every situation is different. But when we think about venues, there's obviously a perception that we have going into it, not just performers, but also for the audience.
Yeah.
So how do we know? How do we know what's going to be right and what's going to be wrong? Or how to feel about it?
Yeah, that's, it's almost like if we look at the main stage as being, or the main stage playing for 10,000 people, you reach the top of the mountain.
Sure.
And what defines the difference between the two potentially is your degree or ability to connect with the audience as a unit. So the example you gave with the 300 or so people at Footwork and it feeling like it's more, I believe that's solely about the level of amplification in how you've connected with the audience. Because I mean, if it's 20 people, but there's that feeling, right? If you're able to convey that feeling and you're moving as one in the creation. I like to think of sets as being a conversation with the audience. Obviously, with 10,000 people, it's going to be a little harder, but it's happened. People, you can create really deep and compelling experiences, right? So that's why I say, to come back to the original question, you've hit the main stage, so now what? Well, it's like, how do I continue adding value, And it's deep connection through whatever you're doing, and how it touches people. Yeah. I've never really had this conversation before, but that's what it is. Because I played at a loft just this last Saturday, about 100 people, but an amazing gig, amazing vibe.
You don't want to stop playing.
Yeah, you don't.
You don't want to
And I
stop playing.
played for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
I'll
find another song.
Yeah. Sure?
I got one.
Yeah, that's queued up. Oh shit.
So the current state of music accessibility.
Yes.
Great or terrible?
It's great. We're in what's called, I read a paper about this called the second renaissance. Have you heard of this concept, the second renaissance of the internet?
I haven't. I know about this. I know about the second. Is it the second renaissance for the Animatrix? Is it? What was that called? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
Do you even know what the Animatrix is?
No. Animatrix?
Okay, so big quick digression.
Yeah.
There was an animated companion to the Matrix movie, the original.
Oh, okay.
They actually did an animated prequel.
Oh, shit.
Incredible soundtrack. That's how I learned about Adam Freeland's Big Wednesday. Amazing track.
I gotta check this out, man.
It's on YouTube. It's totally free. You can grab it right now.
check
The
this out.
Animatrix. All right. Anyway, the second Renaissance.
So second Renaissance describes, in a nutshell, how creators are empowered through the tools of the internet to create things to a whole other level. So an example would be, you and I as creators, we get, have you heard of the whole 1,000 fans theory? If you get 1,000 loyal fans, and you get them to spend like $100 a month or whatever, you're making 100,000 a year, and therefore you can actually live off of your creativity. That's the sort of theory behind it. But there's been other arguments to dispel that. I just think everybody's number looks a little different depending on, lifestyle, what you're actually doing, what you have to offer the world. So the second renaissance, again, is all about, as a creator, you can go out and say, this is who I am, this is what I offer, and say for a site like Patreon, and you get people to actually subscribe to that service and pay you for what you create. The second renaissance, with all of the tools and different websites available, and capture that, you know, not feeling, but the fact that you can execute that way and be able to say, hey, I have this record. I no longer need to feel compelled to take it to a record label anymore. I'm going to go to my Patreon and set up tiers that allow people who are my loyal fans and tribes to pay into this, to feel a part of something that we are creating. And as a result, they get all of these different benefits, like early access to the vinyl pack, early access to uh, the digital release of the record, an ability to provide feedback and influence how the record will come out. That is indeed the second renaissance, and it's happening now. And I'm speaking so fluently on it because it's actually something I'm doing for my album now that I'm working on, and it's working. People have signed up with a minimum of a 6-month commitment to invest in these different tiers, and it's literally like it's another income stream. So if you look back, even like maybe 5, 6 years ago, you weren't able to really do that, right? The whole model as an artist was get your music on SoundCloud, get noticed, make some bootlegs. Hopefully, some DJs will play it, right? And then sign to the best labels, right? And then from there, you'll be able to get all these gigs. And from those gigs, you're getting paid. Well,
That model doesn't exist anymore.
in my mind, it's done. Some people think it's still around. That's why you gotta stream. But the second renaissance allows you to say, I am not putting my music on Spotify, which is something I've done for my own label, because I disagree from a deep values perspective, that just doesn't make any sense for me. And in fact, I profited more by not following that traditional model. So that's what the second renaissance allows. It's empowering creators at a whole other level.
How are you feeling about music NFTs?
I mean, I've completed the first set of a 3-part collection recently myself.
Okay.
I'm skeptical, but I'm open to it.
Is it because it's fresh, or is it because when I hear you talk about this renaissance, I think about Web3?
Yeah, Web3 is definitely a part of that. Yeah, for sure. But like, to me, the pandemic exacerbated it. It accelerated it. Because you are now, as a creator, forced to stay home or wherever, locked down, and it wasn't about the gigs anymore. It's like, what new income streams, at least this is how I was thinking, what new income streams can I erect that will be sustainable, so if one goes down, I just turn up the other one, right? That's what the second renaissance enables. Web3 is a part of that piece as well.
Do you feel that a lot of DJ, producer, performer types, I wish there was just an umbrella term for this. do you feel that this is taken into consideration, what you're talking about right now?
I think some of us are hip to it, and I think
The circle that you're in?
yeah, I think some of us are hip to it. I think others are sitting on the sidelines observing, and I think us, and then you have another set that's completely just clueless, that believes this whole gig culture is the way, when they don't realize things are rapidly changing. The majors, Like, I'll throw out a couple of very profound examples. Universal paid Sting $300 million for his entire catalog about 3 weeks ago, I believe. 2 weeks before that, they paid the Bowie estate $250 million for his catalog. A few weeks before that, they bought Bob Dylan's catalog as well. My whole point here is that if a major label with that amount of access to capital is buying up content this way, they understand something's coming. That's a lot of money to throw around, right? And as artists, we need to be watching these things, like how it's interacting with the technology. And I just know for a fact that it's much more than the innovation of Ray Charles owning his masters, right? It's much more than that. It's not only owning your masters, but having a complete and comprehensive plan in terms of how you're going to distribute your content in the future. Like, we're there.
How is, just to use these examples that you said, how is David Bowie, Sting, and Dylan relevant to somebody who's 16?
They're not yet.
No.
Yeah.
You think they will be?
Yeah.
There's potential for it.
Yeah. My whole point, they just want to own the content.
So I'm asking the question because I think to myself, this investment, which is valued at almost $1 billion total, if I talk about, for example, PJ to somebody who's going to a house music show today, they'll have absolutely no idea who that is.
True.
And if I say it to 10, I think, and I'm not trying to be an asshole, I think only one would Google, and I'm guessing, and I'm saying I think. Right?
Maybe. Yeah.
All right?
You're right.
So it feels like, because of what's happened with accessibility, that there is accessibility is a buffet. So you're good to go ahead and walk around the buffet and grab a piece of this, a piece of that, a piece of this, and you got this plate full of content.
Yeah.
And you eat it up, and then you might go back and grab another plate. I mean, I don't know, especially if you've chooched a big hash joint before you've popped in there. You got the munchies, so you want another plate, maybe two more plates, and you got all this stuff, but you really don't remember all of what you ate. You might just remember one thing, right? Oh, I really like the lemon chicken. It was fucking dope. So, how is it that the digestion of stuff that was content that was created decades ago, which I understand was really relevant then. Again, thinking about accessibility, creating rock music to get, a 5, 6, 10-piece band into a studio and record it. And it's never mind, keep it recording for 2 months maybe if you're making a full album. Yeah. This was ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, but we're seeing it in vinyl. It's not an easy question to answer. I just know what the data says. And the data says, I'll give you another example.
Cool.
Vinyl sales, So
right now the best tangible format sold.
Right. And it keeps growing. But when you start to look into what are the units being sold, like it's the Fleetwood Mac reissue.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's the Joni Mitchell stuff.
65-year-old got excited because cannabis is legal, picked up a record player again, started buying vinyl so he can sit down with his buddies and burn a chooch.
Yeah.
Right.
But some kids are playing this music. So I think the play, to go back to your question on, well, what is the value add to a 16-year-old? I think it's a couple of things. Universal saying, we just want to own it. There's technology today that pushes content to people. If they just say one thing in passing because their phone heard it, and it's now starting to, or your friend came over and was looking at whatever, Joni Mitchell, and then all of a sudden you're starting to see her on your IG feed for whatever reason. So I think they understand something. Where it just means, again, to quote Bill Gates, content is king.
I think about how Kanye collaborated with Paul McCartney.
Oh, did he really? For what?
2 or 3 years ago? I can't remember. what the name of the song was. This is easily found. Someone do a Google. And
Hmm.
and when the image dropped online of both of them together,
What did you think?
the comments were unanimous. Boy, this old guy is so lucky that he gets to do a track with Kanye. Now everyone's gonna know who he is.
Are you serious?
Well, sure. I mean, because
Fair enough. I'm sorry.
I feel like if you've got something right now, and it's really big, I'll take Spider-Man: No Way Home,
Yeah.
the biggest movie of 2021. The type of action that's happening online right now is all behind the scenes stuff of the three of them together. If you haven't seen it, hopefully I'm not fucking up the spoiler action here for you. Okay.
No worries.
All right. Cool. And that
Plug in his ears.
this becomes the conversation. I'll get away from it. Sorry. This becomes a conversation. I used it as an example. It becomes a conversation that the action is more about what it was than what it is, and that's the only thing that's keeping the IP relevant. And that if they didn't have that, then the drop off would be quick. And another example might be that it feels like, if you're going to go see it in the theater, you got the ability to have the bragging rights. You're doing the story, you're in the theater with your buds, tag, and then, afterwards be like, I did this, I saw it, I was there first.
Yeah.
And then, that's your positioning online. And then, I guess everyone can wait 4 or 6 months and then they're able to jump into it and then they get themselves, it's for everybody else, people who weren't able to be first for whatever reason they weren't able to be first. And then it dies another death after that.
Yeah.
It's just like, so again, we're revisiting the idea of accessibility. So if we take stuff that happened pre-internet, okay, and right now I know my producer's shaking his head. If we take stuff that goes pre-internet, then we're looking at something that had incredible legs. And has everything to do with accessibility more so than saturation. There was always tons of content that was out there.
Yes.
But the amount of time that we spent ourselves digesting was different. We're looking at this giant variable. You brought up time. So if you went and you were going to go and see a movie, that was your event. And then that was your conversation. And that was your word of mouth that would work in that fashion. And of course, I understand the relativity of it. Be like, well, if I'm jumping on my socials, that's my word of mouth right now. My megaphone is just a lot bigger, especially if I've got a bunch of followers, a big family fans, whatever it is. They're all with it. But there was just more time spent with it. I think to myself, there's so many franchises that had incredible runs, even if they weren't that great, because the accessibility of it. Now, yeah, it's like you said, I can just skip through it and be like, And then before the show started recording, before we started doing it, I was bringing up a television show. I don't have to use this name, where I put it on now. I put it on to go to sleep. I know it's going to dull me out. These characters are having these long conversations that I'm two fucks to give about the conversation or where it's going. Just get to the meat and potatoes already. Be like, okay, do my scroll, be like, boom. Yeah. But I couldn't do that. Instead, I had to sit with it. And maybe because I had to sit with it, I was absorbing it differently.
True. It's possible. I think the reality is, or the bet's being hedged here, and it's kind of being proven now, is people to go back to the accessibility point. People have the ability to just sort of create their own palette, what they want to have at a whim's notice. Like, it's beyond music. Like, let's stop and think about this, right? Like, sure, in music you can create playlists, but it's happening for everything. Like, we have certain apps that we've grouped together that hey, this makes sense to me because I've had this type of experience with these apps and they work well. I'm looking for a cheap flight or whatever. These three work well, Skyscanner or whatever it is, and I'm just gonna pull that up on my phone. So I think it's this buffet of options that people will have the ability to consume and say this is how it fits my life. There's over 7 billion people on the planet. Each of us have different variations of the same thing,
I like this.
but they're remarkably predictable at the end of the day.
Hmm.
So if you're the person that is the one mining, albeit old Fleetwood Mac records or Bowie, you will stand to benefit in the long term. So that's why I'm telling you, that's why owning your content is super important. The universal moves just tell me owning your content is super important because they know that that's what's going to allow them to survive and to be profitable. And I've proven this just with my own content. I spent a good part of the pandemic going back to labels, breaking agreements sometimes to get my masters back. Yeah.
How's the response to that?
Pretty receptive. I only had like 2 labels kind of give me a hard time, but eventually they gave it to me. Because, my argument at the time was it's a pandemic. I don't know how long this is going to last. Just give me my masters back so I can monetize it.
It's never ending. I thought all mandates being lifted March 1st, but I still got to wear a mask.
Whatever. It's done. There's other distractions happening in the world.
Right now.
Unfortunate ones with the war in Ukraine. But, that's what I did. I spent a good chunk of my time reacquiring my own masters back. And I'll drop this one on you. So Bandcamp, which was acquired by Epic Games.
I saw that, which is subsidized by Tencent.
Right. And Tencent,
Yes, TikTok and
yeah,
right.
it's a whole other thing.
I know it's a giant conversation. I'm more than happy to have with you. It happened today, right?
Yeah,
Was it
yeah,
today?
they announced it today.
Okay, so it probably happened last week.
So Bandcamp, the reason why I'm mentioning Bandcamp is because I wanted to prove a theory where I literally created a release and said it's only available for 24 hours. And I did it at the top of February.
Social experiment?
Yeah.
Okay.
FOMO, 24 hours. This is the only place you can get it. It's only available. And I made a substantial killing on it. If money is the measure of success, I made a substantial killing. But my true measure of success was the amount of new loyal followers I gained from doing that action. So going into it, I had like 600 Bandcamp followers, which is good. It's these are people who actually spend money and say we like your brand. At the end of it, I came out with 754 followers. So yes, tangibly and monetarily, I made money, really good money, and in a weird way, I made more money doing that for a number of other previous releases that I've done with, in the traditional model of sign it over to a label and wait for a statement that just tells you you're in the red and they don't owe you anything, to being in the black and you have tons of, and plus another 150-ish followers of people who are saying, I like what you're doing, I'm willing to spend money on it. This is the second renaissance. I wouldn't have been able to do that 5 years or whatever in the old music model. So content, because I own it and it's mine, I'm free to do whatever I want with it and do those little 24-hour FOMO things, and I'm going to do it again. Yeah.
Let's go into something super fun.
Sure, let's do that.
What is your dream venue to perform at?
God, I kind of did it. I already did it. It was Barcelona Elro, main stage, main room, and I did that.
It's like a circus.
Yeah. It's an amazing experience, bro. Have you played it?
No, I couldn't say I really am in that genre or vibe, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's incredible because like that main room is like that's the Elro brand. For those who are not familiar, it has a very comprehensive history in circus. They're a circus family in Spain, and they've since brought that experience into all the modern day festival events that they do. So it was crazy. My flight was delayed coming because I played Egg the night before in London, and so it's like a half-hour flight into Spain, Barcelona.
Yeah, Europe is a bit funny like that.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like
a whole lot of like we're going for a flight. You go up and then you have
you're
the
down.
water, and then you're like, okay, it's time to land.
Okay,
Like,
get
and you're in a
off.
totally different place. You're like,
Exactly. So it's crazy. So we're rushing.
I'm just thinking because in Canada, I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna play in Calgary. You'd be like, I'm gonna take a nap.
Yeah.
You can literally pass that 4 hours later and be like, now
few hours, get up,
yeah.
chill. Or BC is a whole other thing.
Yeah,
right?
I'm in BC. I'll take the extra leg room.
You got enough time to chill, but no, this
Yeah.
is like up in the air and down.
Right.
So yeah, the shuttle picks us up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, we know your set time's running because you're delayed." He's like, "Yeah, just go up the stairs and you'll be right into the DJ booth." So imagine you're literally on a driveway, and you come out, and he's like, "Yeah, don't worry, I got your luggage. Just go up those stairs. Here's your headphone bag, and you'll be right into the DJ booth." You go into the booth, and you look over, and there's like 8,000 people staring at you. Like, oh, you're here. And they're holding up signs and shit. Yeah. And it's like completely theatrical, like you said. So I wanted to experience that. It was a tremendous experience for me. And Luciano was playing after me. He was setting up. It's surreal. It's surreal to be from Toronto there in that room. And then the CEO of Elro, unbeknownst to me, was behind the booth with his wife and his son, who also runs the company. And he's like, "Yeah, come over here." And my rider, I'm not trying to brag about my rider, but it's pretty crazy. Like I had 2 bottles of 1942 in there.
Why?
I love tequila.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
All right.
It's, it's
2 bottles.
Normally, no, I only asked for 1. They put in 2.
All right, but do you smash through the one over the course
I
of the
smashed through the one with some help, and the other just went somewhere.
It's really tough to find all that help in the booth to make your bottles. I'm always challenged by it. Where are the people that drink this booze?
Oh God! So he's like, "Yeah, come here, have a drink with my wife and I," and had a drink, and he's like, and I was like beat tired, so he's like, "No, go back to the hotel, shower, come back," and I come back, and I run into Blondish. There's another Canadian, and she was playing the main stage, and then I went to the side stage, and this is when my Hot Creations release came out, and they're playing one of the songs, and I was like, this is like a surreal. The guy, like, he literally, you know how it is, right? It's cute and it's in the mix, and he looks over, he's like, "You're here," like, it's like, so it was really cool. That was one of my best moments, favorite memories, and I got to play at that spot. So cool. And for the longest while, it was Coda too, man. I wanted to play Coda so bad, and the way that came about was just so funny. I wasn't even supposed to play. Are you familiar with Josh Butler?
He's a producer.
Yeah, from the UK. He's got a label called Origins. And anyway, he came. He was booked to play, and he's like, "Yeah, let's hang out, make some music or whatever." And we made the song called Tropicana, which is actually out. And so he played Sunny Side, and the after party was Coda. So he's like, "You want to play back to back with me at Coda?" I'm like, "Oh, this is crazy. I didn't think it would happen this way, but sure." And that's what we did. So I love the sound there, man. That's just really good job. Yeah.
Awesome sauce.
Yeah.
Rave culture has displayed many accessories through the years. Glow sticks, beads, fat pants, and soothers to name some. What accessories are important for a night out of house music?
Oh my gosh. I'm like the wrong person to ask this question. But the accessories for house
How
music?
about this? I'll rephrase it. What are your accessories?
My
for a night?
accessories?
Yes. How about that?
What I'm DJing or
I
as
just in general, you got the night out. It's happening. Here's your night. What do you got on you?
for me, not much. Even if I'm even if I'm DJing, it's my headphone bag,
Okay.
and I'm looking for a place to go back to the hotel room and leave it there and come back to the jam. I'm not trying to be, weighed down with all this stuff, and try and look cool or whatever. That's the beauty of house music. You can just show up as you are and enjoy it for what it is. I think so. Yeah. So for me, it's not much. As long as I got my tequila and pineapple juice,
Tequila and pineapple.
or tequila and coconut water, it's really good. You should try it.
I mean, I want to now. It's a
It's
curious
deadly. It's
combination
deadly.
to me. Yeah.
You wouldn't even know, like as you're drinking, you wouldn't even. Yeah, it's nice.
So, would you ever consider taking Malibu and tequila and putting it together?
I've done that. It's good.
Is it?
It's good.
How does
Malibu
rum
rum,
work
right?
with
The white
tequila?
bottle. It's good, man. Try it. Yeah.
You are the mix master. Planned sets or on the fly?
On the fly.
Why?
Because it's just like what's happening here, right? Although you had the questions, I'm sure you've moved around a bit,
Sure.
right? So that's the vibe. That's the beauty in it. And it's a better experience as a result. Planned sets are awful things. I find it, I think it would be so insulting for me to come into someone's space and say, like, there has to be a fine balance of, I'm going to play stuff that you weren't expecting to hear that's going to be dope, but it needs to be a conversation. It can't be this brash thing of, listen to this, and it's all sequenced and it's done. It needs to be a conversation. Capture the mood. Like, I made a song called Philippine Sunrise. I would play that song specifically for that moment. And I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, but that's what it's there for. A sunrise set.
In music, there's a reference for call and answer. Is the DJ the call and the audience the answer?
I think most of the time, but I also believe, like I said, it's a conversation. Right? There's times, I don't know about for you, but I've had this conversation with Derek Carter, and it's like you just focus on one person. And I've said this to people too. I'm playing for you tonight. I don't care about what else is going on. I'm playing for you, and it's usually the person who is owning, for whatever reason, owning the room. Have you experienced that? Like, it's like you could single out a person, and it's like a magnet drawn into that person that's like just, they're there to dance, to vibe.
You see and feel that energy.
Yeah, and as a result of that energy, it influences others. So, mentally, like, I'll just say, yeah, I'm playing for this person or a few persons or whatever, and it generally works out well.
You're running a Patreon. We talked about that for a smidge. It
Yeah.
provides tips, tricks, magic, guidance, and insight into you and your music.
Yes, sir.
How can artistic individuality transpire through learning from a pro? Or what could someone do to stand out with learned concepts?
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, so for the first piece, learning from someone's experience is always valuable, especially from people who are doing what you want to do. I've sat in the studio with many people who I've looked up to, and work with people who I've looked up to, and to be sitting there watching how they work is an invaluable. Like, you can't even put a price on it, right? You've learned so much. It's like the first time I seen Mark Farina DJ, and he had this mix. It's so crazy. He had this mix going on. I was like, oh, how's he gonna get out of this? Like I was just like, I was watching him, and all he did is he took the mid right out, but the groove was still there between the bass and the highs. You know how that sounds, right? It's not as full in the sound, but it was enough for him to say, "I'm moving the energy, and you're coming with me." That's what I learned from that. So invaluable stuff. It's like when you see masters working, and you can learn from it. There's just tons of value you can't even put a price on. And I'm sorry, the last part of your question.
What could someone do to stand out with
So,
those
yeah.
concepts? Like once you, so I'm essentially saying, so someone's on your Patreon, you're taking them through a walkthrough of something you've done with your track. Someone is very interested in how you've created your kick drums.
Yeah.
And you could obviously sit down and be like, here's what I did. Here's the compression that I use. Here's the limitation I've used. Right. Here's the EQing that I've used. And here's how I've gone and I've stationed each one of these plugins so that the chain makes sense. Someone is going to be watching this and obviously try to replicate it. But how do they take that once they've got that and make it their own?
Yeah.
Is that something that...
Yeah. The best way to approach these situations is to just be a sponge, right? And just absorb it and say, and I think you have to be brutally honest with yourself in terms of, hey, I'm not as skilled in this area, so what did I take away from that? And be willing to change and experiment based on what you've learned, right? It's a great example or a question. For the longest while for a kick drum, I was just putting like distortion on a kick, and Harry Romero was like, you got to put a Pultec EQ on that, man, because it'll change your life. And he said that one thing to me, and I use a Pultec on the kick and my snares plus the distortion, right? And I put the distortion there just so it would cut through these laptop speakers and these phones, right? But he took it to a whole level. But I was willing to receive that feedback. Because I think a lot of just people, forget about generations, okay? Just people, because art is so personal, some people are not receptive to feedback in terms of how to improve. And when they're not open, they miss those gems that others would put out. So I think you always gotta, like for me, I say mastery is a thing that I'll pursue but never know that I've attained it, because you want to be in a constant state of learning.
So have you been in a position on your Patreon interacting with your patrons?
Yep.
Where information, suggestions, or opinions are coming at you, and you could be in the middle of something and make yourself stop and be like, "Oh shit, that's right. What I'm up to is not."
Yeah, I not as much, but the quality of questions, right, help to open up your mind to really examining what it is you're doing. I've had those experiences a couple of times, like where someone's saying, "Oh, I noticed you did this, but were you aware you can do it this way?" Right? And I was like, "No, I wasn't. So let me try it out." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. And here's how it worked out." Yeah, Patreon is an amazing thing for creators. It's really great. It really
I know that you've been on the channel for a minute, and that you've got it going on. It seems like it's definitely a part of what is happening, and it's not just an outlet.
Yeah,
it's a piece of your puzzle.
Absolutely, it really is, and I think I don't think it's something you can force feed. Like I've seen some people through the pandemic get on there and say, "Yeah, I'm going to be streaming my DJ sets, and you got to pay for this," and it wasn't natural for them to do that, right? So they weren't motivated. Well, forget about motivation. They weren't disciplined enough to keep it going, right? So I've recently switched it. Like, I'll be honest, at the start, I was very keen on, ooh, I got to get a certain amount of patrons on here, right? And that focus has changed to, well, these are the type of patrons I want on here, right? It's very specific. It's, people who are interested not only in supporting the music, but supporting the brand and are also, uh, confident that I'm the right person to help them in their journey of becoming a professional DJ and producer in this game, right? And it's worked out well. So I don't need 200 or 11,000 patrons and charging $2 tiers. I just need the right ones that I can add value to that will constantly be present. And it's, it's morphed into other platforms like Discord as well. Discord is amazing. Like, you got people there, the conversations being had. It's really cool.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Discord?
Yeah, I work with someone, Fowler, who has a super crazy Discord running. It's really something, and it's maybe his favorite social media outlet right now. He's barely on Facebook or Twitter, or I see his Snapchat stuff. I don't know if you use Snapchat. I
don't use Snapchat.
I love Snapchat.
It's
I feel like it's that and Discord are perhaps the last free social media systems left, where I don't like you. I can go on Snapchat, and unless I go to a certain section, I'm not seeing ads. I can directly interact with people back and forth.
Yeah, that's fair.
And while that's happening during the interaction, it's not all of a sudden, here's Goodyear tires, you should buy one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
As opposed to like anything else I'm scrolling through, it's like every thumb scroll or third thumb scroll is like an ad that's in my face.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see what Discord has transformed into over the last little bit, and I get it. Jackin House.
Yes.
In 1998 versus Jackin House in 2022.
Oh, this is the question. What? Okay, so what about it? I'll let you finish.
What are the differences between these two times and this genre name?
Well, I think Jackin House of the 90s, so 98, was by far much more innovative. In terms of sampling chops and creativity, lots of emphasis on the drum work. Like you look at the sneak stuff in the '90s for Jackin, like it's, it was just very exciting. I think we are getting back to that, but we went through this long period at Jackin House where it's just people redoing friggin' records that have already been done before with no change or innovation or value add to the music. Examples I can give you are like, tonight you're gonna leave that 9 to 5 up on the shelf. That was a dope. When that came out in the 90s, we were like, yo, I've heard that record done at least 5 or 6 times now, the exact same way, and they're calling it Jackin House, or they're sampling some cheesy ass disco record that we've all heard the same loop from, and calling it Jackin House. That's why I said to Beatport, I said, you have an opportunity here, and let me help you fix this. Well, and we launched a proper Jackin House page last August that has a nod to the proper Jackin House sound in the 90s. We're not promoting these garbage, easy to do, cheesy records that have already been done before. So, Jackin House, to me, it's my heart. I think it's the most exciting and innovative genre if producers challenge themselves to make that happen. And I'm starting to hear it more. I'm starting to hear some really cool stuff coming out of South America, even Mexico, the Netherlands. There's some really exciting music coming there. Hoping Tommy Largo comes back in the mix with some of his really cool Jackin House stuff. Yeah, so great question.
It's time for the hot seat.
Oh,
Are you ready? Typically, I've had our guests, especially when I'm having DJ producer humans with us, I'll ask them what their 3 favorite records are. I'm going to switch it around a little bit tonight.
Okay, good.
I'm going to ask you what you think the 3 most important house music records are.
Oh my God! Like, are you doing this? Okay, house records. My first one would be "You Can't Hide from Your Bud." I think
DJ Snake.
DJ Snake. It's a very important record for several reasons. Going back to the innovation stuff I just discussed about Jacking House, but it's also a record that represents, like, it's a subgenre of house, right? And it's just like it's on its own island and it's doing its own thing. I mean, the first time I heard that, I was like, yeah, and it transcends, right? You could still play that. It's timeless. You could still play that record today, right? So that's one. The other would be, oh man, this is so tough, man. Oh, it's not really house. It's not really house, but it's what is attached to electronic music, and regardless of whatever, it's Strings of Life. I think that's a very important record, regardless of everything else. Like, that's one of those records. You hear it, and you're immediately catapulted to a whole other place, and you're like, what is this, right? So I think for sure that one. And I'm gonna have to go with Daft Punk's Revolution 909. Yeah, man. For me, those are my 3, man. Yeah, and it's just because of how those 3 records are what I aspire to do in my own work, is to just create something that is timeless and it's contributed to the culture and it's been true to the culture.
You selected underground records.
Yeah, man.
None of those records were released with the intention of going to number 1, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those things of where it turned out to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. But isn't that the beauty of it, right? It shouldn't be like, I know a lot of what happens today, we literally have people like, oh, I don't really make music that much, so I gotta get a ghost producer and sit down in a room and make beats and then say I did these beats, and like, that's the time we're living in now, where people aren't even making their own fucking music.
Is that still a thing?
Oh, absolutely it is. Totally is.
I feel like I'm in the dark with it.
Ghost production is still there. And I actually, on my own channel, I interviewed a person who is a ghost producer, and his position on it was he's helping people attain their goals, which is cool. Like don't get me wrong, there was a time where I'd say I was more of a producer than I was a DJ and producer. But I'm comfortable in saying I'm a DJ and producer because I realize through hours and hours put into my craft that they complement each other, Either the one makes you better and the other, and vice versa, Like, I really do believe DJs are great song arrangers because they know when certain things need to happen in the mix and in the experience of the club. I really do believe that. So by doing both, you become better at each skill set. They complement each other. So, yeah, ghost production is still out there, man. And it's unfortunate. I really do think it's unfortunate because you never really get to know the true artistry of that person. It's just being conveyed through, like, it's like, you're sitting in a room can I get something funky? And it's that person based on what they think is funky, but it's not you saying this is funky. You know what I'm saying? And that's what gets out there. It's an unfortunate reality of our music, but it is what it is. I think it's just part of the saturation too.
This isn't exclusive to dance music.
No.
No.
No. I mean, like even with hip hop, right? With the whole, like, just on a lyrical front, the MC front, there's ghostwriters. Like, I read a book by Rick Ross recently talking about the amount of songs he's ghostwritten for. Snoop Dogg too, not even getting paid for it either. You know, so it is what it is, man.
I really appreciate our time tonight.
Yeah,
And
so
you being with us.
This was great, man. This is like really exceeded my expectations. So thank you.
Thank
Sincerely.
you.
It
Cheers.
was really good. Thank you.
Can you let us all know where to find you and what you've got going on?
You can find me everywhere, but my
I'm gonna type in everywhere. Hold on.
my YouTube channel. You just youtube.com/Demuir. Videos there twice a week. Patreon. Just Google that. /Demuir official. Bandcamp, DemuirBeats.bandcamp.com. And Instagram, just Demuir. And my Purveyor Underground is exactly how it sounds, all one word. There's Purveyor Underground, and then there's Purveyor Underground Limited, which is our vinyl side. And you can just Google and find all of that. There's a lot of exciting things coming.
Through your time management and scheduling, do you have an idea of when your album's going to be coming?
Yeah, I expect Visions was the name of the album. They'll drop September is the target. So September, October.
Whole lot of jamming and mastering and mixing in the summertime.
Yes, yes. I'll get you a copy, bro.
I'm stoked.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you. Appreciate you being with us. This was an incredible session. I hope you enjoyed it too. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much for watching. If you've had a great time, and I hope you have, there's more awesomeness right here. Jump into these episodes. You know you want them.